What's up, y'all? It's Whitney Russell, trumpet. Graduated 1988, Arts Magnet alumni. Graduated with Roy. Grew up with him. Played trumpet with him. Chatted with him. So I'm gonna tell y'all. This video here is of the memorial show in Dallas. I didn't get the whole show. I was playing, so if anybody has the whole show, Facebook me at Whitney Russell and Jazz Hop. Facebook, and I'll make another one of these if I have some more of the show. After that, after the show, I do some reflections. I seen somebody else do some reflections. Thought it was pretty cool, so I tell y'all some stories, funny stories. Roy was a funny cat. Like, I tell y'all some funny stories of me and him growing up and shedding this music together. So y'all check it out.
That's what we used to do here. That's what we did. That's how we are. That's how we get down. That's what we used to do. I remember the first time I met you, I was in the hallway and I was in 9th grade. You were in 10th grade. And I didn't know where I was. I was lost in the hallway. Saw you practicing your trumpet. And immediately knew, this is where I need to be. This is who I am. I'm an artist and I need to be here surrounded by other artists. Remember that? I don't even know if you saw me that day, but I saw you. And yes, I'm making it up as I go. It's improvisation. And this is the occasion. Tonight we are celebrating the life and spirit of Roy Hargrove, a dear friend of us all. Super duper smile. Crazy, crazy fresh sense of humor. Impeccable wardrobe styling. And he played like a grown man when he was 6. I'm sorry, he said when he was 5. Welcome. Thank you. So Roy, do you remember ninth grade for me, 10th grade for you, we had a teacher named Mr. Wilder. You remember?
Yeah.
So Mr. Wilder was this wild, biker-looking science teacher, biology teacher, and he had like these outbursts sometimes. Remember that?
Yeah.
And he would like bang on the, hey! Quiet back there. But he really didn't want to like hurt the table. You know, it was a docile kind of anger. He was gentle, but he was fierce at the same time. And Roy, you remember you used to sit next to me in biology. In Mr. Wilder's class, and I would come in late every day and he would mark me tardy. And he said, Apples, you can't be late to class. Because he really didn't want to yell. He didn't want to scare his voice. It was a weird combination of outbursts and retraction. Mr. Wild thing. And so we would sit together at the table in the back of the class, and there was a dude in there. I think his name was, I don't remember the dude's name right, but remember he used to wear a Gucci belt, and he could turn it over, and it was Louis Vuitton. You know what I'm talking about, right? And he used to wear these python cowboy boots and overalls. And he wear that belt over the overalls, like Gucci one day, Louis one day. And he could switch it over, you know? You could turn it over and it was Louis on the other side. And it was fascinating. But we used to sit together at the table, and you remember we formed a rap group at the table? You used to beatbox, and I used to rap. And the name of our group was Apples and Honey Bun. And you Roy, you called yourself Honey Bun because you used to eat honey buns in class. Remember that? And you would like rap, and I would rap and you would beat on the table and beatbox. And I would be like, my name is Apples and I rock your world. I'm also known as the Gucci girl, love super cute and plenty bad. 30, 36 and a half. And you thought I was the best rapper in the world. I thought I was the best rapper in the world. It was amazing. And then we went on to 10th grade and 11th grade, and I was in 11th grade and you were in 12th, and you graduated with everybody squeak, and everybody left, and I was there and as a senior, and I would still talk to you from time to time, and you were off in the world. You were off to become amazing. And I went to Grambling State University, and I would hear you on the radio, because in college radio they would play you, and it was great. And I said at that time, I know I can do it too, if he did it, because I got it, and I know, because he believed in me. I was a class clown kind of chick. My coping mechanism was comedy. That's how I cope with shit. That's how I stuff. Excuse me. Or I can say shit. That's how I cope with shit. Comedy. So, but even though I was the class clown, and sometimes the butt of the joke made me, because I was always joking to other people. I could take a joke real well. I could take it. You still took me serious, and you still pushed me into greatness. I remember when I first saw you after I got a record deal too. I called you and I said, I want you to come play on my album. It's called Baduism. And I think it's gonna be good, but I need you to play on it. He did, he came and played on it. And every album after that, he played on it. You played on it. Every album after that. And we went overseas, and I would see you at every jazz festival overseas, remember? And we would be so happy to see each other, like, Apples! Honey bun! And we bust into, well, my name is Apples in the rocking, remember? And once we were in Amsterdam, and you came to my hotel room and you said, Apples, you have to see something, I have to take you somewhere. And I'm like, okay. He said, we're gonna go to the red light district. I said, I don't really need no more clothes. And you said, no, it ain't no clothes. So we began to walk through Amsterdam. And the closer we got to the red light district, the stranger it got. Remember that? Like the storefronts got stranger. Like the stuff they were selling in there. It made me bashful. Remember that? I was bashful. And the closer we got, I was like, wait a minute, what kind of theater is this? What are they doing in there? They was doing live sex. Remember? And we passed by that. And I was so happy that we didn't go in there. And we got closer and closer, and then we saw the women in the windows and stuff. You know, it was legal prostitution. I would have never known that existed. And my boyfriend at the time was mad at you for taking me because he didn't want me to know it existed. But you was my dog, though. You wanted me to know what was going on in the world. And I don't think I talked for about 2 days after that. Remember?
Oh my goodness.
I have so many memories, so many beautiful memories. Reflections, I'm reflecting. And if I'm not mistaken, is this the time when people get to come up and reflect? Nedra, holler at me real quick. Say, yeah, okay. Nedra's another person that I'm talking to from the other side. Because I can speak to people from the other side, as you can see. Yeah. She said, yeah, it's time for reflections. But Gwina had an idea. She said, if people want to come up and do reflections, because I'm sure there are some people out there who do, is that correct? Or back in the back, they might. But the way we're going to do our reflections, we're going to do it a little different. If you want to do reflections, you have to come and sing it.
Oh my gosh.
You have to sing your reflection. In the spirit of improvisation. I'll demonstrate. Is the band supposed to be playing too, or we just gonna do it off the top of the dome? I guess we're gonna do it off the top. Off the top. Thank you, great grandma. She was speaking to me from the other side. Off the top. Off the top. Off the top. We were young, we were free, you and me. We were young, we were young. We were green, we were green, we were young, we had dreams. You had some, I had some. You had some, I had some. We had some, we had fun. One on one, two on two, all of us. We were friends, we were free. You and me. We would laugh, we would cry. We would numb all our pain. You would play, I would sing. We arranged as we went, as we go. We improv what we know. knew what to do, 'cause it was me and it was you. Help me. You told me I was great, then I became great. You were never late with a plate of food from your mind. You were kind, made me strong. I wrote apple tree, then on and on. And then we played, then we talked.
For the first time, I met Roy. I graduated in '88 with him, and we played in a band, 7th and 8th grade. First time I met him, it was funny. Last time I hung out with him, it was funny. That was in 7th and 8th grade. We was the only black people in the band, so we were sitting. It's like a little bit. So we were sitting there playing. We was practicing. So I would look down. And I looked down at him, and I saw him look down at me. And I saw his head, it looked like a black peanut. And I saw him. So then, at the end, we both looked at each other. We just started laughing. And so he told me. So he told me he was going to our, I was going to our show. I never knew how talented Roy was, but being next to him, he showed me a lot. And we used to practice. Well, I'll tell you this. First time I knew he was really talented, we was in the 9th grade and I was playing the 145 blues joint. That's all I used to play. Like, that's how we used to play. We used to noodle around. And so we was in symphonic band, and I heard him playing. I said, I can't tell you exactly what I said because it was a little foul. I said, brother, what is that you're playing? Those changes that you're playing? And he said, this is a little jazz. We went over to his house, and I played with him, and he played his play-alongs. This is the first time I knew that he was great, because we played the play-alongs, and after we played the song once, and then he would get up, and he would start to jam like he already knew the song. And I'm sitting there reading, like, what's wrong with me? Like, I'm not learning the song. And he would play. He was like so beautiful, and I was like, man. Then I remember the last time I knew he was talented. We was in, and I taped all of those sessions that we did, And one time I seen him, I said, you know, I got all those sessions that we did on tape. And he told me, are you gonna sell it? I said, no, I'm not gonna sell it. So the next time I knew he was great was when we was in the lab band. And we had all this music. It was like 4 pages of music, big band, big folders. So I played second, he played first all the time. And I was playing, he was playing, no music. There was no music on the stand. And so we finished playing, and I looked over to him, I said, man, where's your folder at? And he said, I'm playing it by memory. And I said, memory? I said, man, you're weird. That's when I knew he was talented. But back then, I didn't call it talented, I called it weird. I said, you're weird. So, Roy Hargrove, piece of soul.
just some funny stories of me and Roy. So like when I met him, like I said, I'm not gonna repeat some of the stuff I did on the memorial, but I met him 7th, 8th grade, and I remember he was playing like some real music when we was in the 9th grade, and I was like, yo, what's that music you playing? So he was playing some, straight ahead, and then one of the stories that his middle school teacher told us was that when he was in 6th grade, they had to put a phone booth up so he could stand up and solo. So he was doing it in the 6th grade. But one thing about, like I said, Roy, growing up with him, is that like I never knew how talented he was because like in Dallas we really didn't have a lot of trumpet players. It wasn't rich with trumpets like New Orleans is anything, but it was rich with funk and blues. And so when I heard him play in the 9th grade, I'm like, yo, what's that? So we got together. I think it was the summer of 9th grade, and I bring over these play-alongs, which is like karaoke for jazz. And I remember like one thing about him, he was playing like solos, and luckily we didn't have no teachers and stuff to tell us this. I don't know how he knew harmony, but I knew harmony because I played the piano, and so I knew harmony. And so like we really never did like sit down and talk about changes. He didn't really talk that much, like we didn't sit down and, man, the 10th measure, that sharp 9, whatever chord, what do you think? It was just, we just listened to the music and played what we felt. And so I remember those sessions, and I remember, being a young player, generally what you do is try to, play and make sure you don't play no wrong notes. That's just the main thing. He was playing like solos. I remember it because it was like, yeah, because we would play along, and like I said, once we played the song once, he would get up and he would stand up, by the door. And so like he was like, we was in the jam session and he was like performing. And so I was still reading, and I remember that because I was like, why am I still reading? And so when he was playing solos, and I remember we would be, playing, and then after the song, because I usually would solo first, and then he would play, and after the song was over, he'd still be playing, and the song would end, and we both would look at each other like, yeah, like, because we knew he was playing, like, yo, but for me, he would sound just like the records. We would listen all the time, like, more than we play. We listen more, and so then we would play, and he just sounded like to me, he just sounded like the guys on the records. I didn't know that was incredible at that age to sound like that, but I understood exactly what he was doing. But some of the stuff that he was doing, it wasn't like me being the same age as him. Had he been like maybe a senior and I was a freshman, I would have been more like, yo, show me this. What are you doing? What are you doing? Hey, what's up? But it wasn't like that. We was playing the same age, and so we was just experimenting with the music together, and he was just killing, And so I remember one thing during those sessions that I can remember grabbing from him was the way he phrased, the music. And like he would take a tune, like all the music was the same to him, R&B, funk, jazz, it was just all the same, So he would take a tune like, say, Val's Hot, like on Clifford Brown tune, and it generally goes like, he wouldn't see quarter notes, eighth notes, 16 notes, none of that. He would see melody. So Val's Hot would be like, do 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 do. And so he would play it, and he would say, and then he would play it like that. And I remember back then, I was like, yeah, that's cool. Yeah, because back then it was like either what you was playing was hip, cool. It was like, yo, all right, I'm going to play it like that. And so that's one thing, listening to him phrase those melodies. And I taped all those sessions that we had. And I remember telling him like 15 years later, like, hey man, I got those sessions we did. And he was like, you ain't gonna sell them all, I was like, nah, I ain't gonna sell them. But I ain't even thought about it. I still wouldn't sell them. But so anyway, so when we at arts, like I said, I never knew how good he was because we didn't have people we didn't go out in the in the city and play. And Dallas wasn't really that much of like putting him up on a pedestal, like, oh, this new Trump player. It wasn't like that. So he just was good at Arts Magnet, and he would play. And I remember, like I said on the video, one time we was in, and one thing about it, I remember anytime we would play like in what is it, like classical time? No, not classical. Like wind ensemble. We'd be in wind ensemble, and I was sitting next to him, and I remember he would always play all the passages correctly. So we'd go down the line like, anybody can play this, and he would always play, everything like bam. That's how it's supposed to sound. When I thought to myself, man, that's a lot of pressure, because every time we got to a passage, it's like, oh, who can play this? And it'd be like Roy, bump, 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 bump. And he'd play it like, all right. But it was just like, that was just him. It was like, he just did everything good. It was just kind of like a norm. But I didn't know how good it was till we went like to IAJ Festival, which is like a festival for all over the country. So everybody would come all over the country to this international jazz festival. So that's the first time when I was like, oh, okay, this cat here is special. I remember like in high school, his favorite trumpet player was Freddie Hubbard. Mine was Lee Morgan, because I listened to Freddie and I'm like, yo, I ain't sounding like that. Like back in that day, listening to music was, can you sound like these cats? You know what I mean? But he never sounded like Freddie Hubbard. He sounded like Roy in middle school. I mean, in high school, which is, now I realize how good that was. The fact that he had his own voice. So I remember we went to IAJ conference, and it was funny because, like I said, we wasn't experienced to a lot of music in Dallas. So when we went to IAJ conference, man, we was like little kids. Like, I don't remember if I was roommate with him or not, but I remember we was hanging out. And I remember we would listen, like, it was at the hotel, so you could hear like music all over the hotel, like, so as soon as we heard like some music, especially a trumpet or any kind of swing, man, we go running like, oh, let's go hear this. And I'll never forget, because, it was like a lot of jazz educators, which, But I remember me and him, and we was going into, we would stop into a room and hear some cat, and we'd be standing in the back, and he'd be standing next to me. And I remember asking him, I was like, man, what albums would they be listening to? Because it just wasn't quite at the level that we were used to. So that's when I started to realize, okay, this cat was like one of the best there, period, on the trumpet, sax, key. I mean, he was like one of the best there. So I remember Arts Magnet was really known, was really big, and so there was a big buzz in the convention. And I remember, I thought it was because they was, Arts Magnet, whatever. So I had on my Arts Magnet shirt. I was walking a little, what I'm saying? I was telling everybody, yeah, we're going to be here at 3. You better come and check us out. So then, after a while of listening to people and all that, I realized that everybody was there to listen to Roy. And so I was like, what? I remember I even told him, I was like, man, everybody's here to hear you? And he didn't even know. He was like, what? And I was like, yeah. And so that's when I was like, okay. And so then during the jam sessions at the Jazz Fest IEJ, I remember they had like pro jam sessions, and they had regular people's jam sessions. So of course he went to the pro jam sessions, which happened like in people's rooms or whatnot. Like, and so I remember I went to the regular people's jam session, and I remember sitting and hearing all these people playing, and I was like, yo, y'all, these people suck. No, I shouldn't say that. Nah, I'm just saying they wasn't at the level of what I've been hearing. And that's, because I've been listening to Roy and albums. And I was just like, yo, they was playing blues. And it was just, So I went up to the pro jam session and just listened. And I mean, like, he was just killing. So that's when the first time I realized, yo, you got something going. Maybe he realized too, because after that, it was like, yo, he played with David Fathead Newman, James Clay, some of the stars in Dallas, which was David Fathead Newman, James Clay, Marshall Ivory, rest in peace all. Yeah, so that was, so the next year, which is our senior year, I remember one thing about Roy was he was so loving of, like, if you played good, you know what I mean? Like, he didn't dig this challenges and stuff. He was like, yo, if you played good, you were a part of me. And then, like, so I remember, like, me and him at that point, I didn't really get a chance to solo that much in high school because he was soloing all the time and killing. But I remember he would always go to, we had jam sessions in the morning, and he would go to those jam sessions in the morning. And then we had like the fishbowl. Y'all remember the fishbowl, Arts Magnet? Classic fishbowl. I wish we had some tapes. Fishbowl. I'll be playing the piano, because that's what I basically did. I played the piano. Erykah Badu, which was Apples back in the day, she'd be rapping or whatever. He'd come and play the horn. I mean, it was just a lovely, Arts Magnet was just so lovely for everybody. Bell would ring and wouldn't nobody even go nowhere. We were just playing. It was really like fame. And so I remember one time I played, it was like at a jam session in the morning. And I remember they was playing like Song for My Father, which is one of my favorite tunes. And so I played, and I remember the next class we had was English. And he sat in the second row, I sat in the back, because I'm always cutting up. And I remember he looked back every 5 minutes and was like, but he loved when he could, like, he put so many people on, like from our hometown. He put so many people on. If you knew him and he knew that you knew somebody he knew, he would put you in his band. He would put you down. He always told me, come to New York. I'll put you up, I'll put you down. I was like, that's too cold, New York. But he was that kind of guy, like, yo, he was like, everybody that I sit down, I didn't send them down, but that went down to New York, that would, you know, let them know, oh, I know him, he would put him in his band. So he was that kind of cat. And so he was just a lovely cat. So I'm gonna tell y'all a couple stories of how funny he was. Now, we always used to snap. I think now it's called snapping. Back in our day, it was called scoring. I think that's what we used to call it, like scoring. We used to score on people. So like in high school, he would have his group, which was like Sheldon, right? Funny cat. I would hang out with him and Sheldon and Roy, and them two. That was his best friend, Sheldon Wright. Them two were so funny. I remember just being in the car, just hanging out with them, and they would just be so funny. But that was our thing. We would snap. We would just scoring on people, like laughing. And so I remember after he got big, you know, he was in where'd he go to school? Berkeley. So after he got, you know, big and famous, we would always hang out, and when we would hang out, it would just be like, we wouldn't even talk about music or none of that. I remember I never even asked him like about his career, anything, music. We would just talk about back in the day. We would talk about people. One time I go down there in New York and I go visit him, and we ride the A train, and we just ride it down to Harlem, and we would just score on people. We just snap on people coming in the subway, and we just had so much fun. Not loud, we just saw ourselves. We would just snap. And man, it was so fun. And we would come back, and he would always just lose time. And so one time I hung out with him. I don't remember where it was, but he was playing. And so I came, I think I had a gig or something, but I came, it was like 1:30. And so I came to his room, knocked on his door, and he was like, yo, all right, what's up? Ooh, all right. So he was working on this thing called whisper tones or something for the trumpet. If you're a trumpet player, you want to know what that is, Facebook me, I'll let you know. But he was working on that. He would show me, you know, little things that he was working on. And so, but he was so excited about this little whisper tone. So he grabbed his horn, and it's like, one thing about Roy is his horn was just a part of his body. Like most cats instruments like me, or instrument players. A horn is almost like your girlfriend or your wife. Sometimes you just need to get away. His horn was just with him. So I remember he grabbed his horn, and man, he was like, "Let me come show you." So we went and we found somebody played the piano, and we found a piano, and it was just me, maybe a friend of mine, two friends of mine, and a piano player. And he played for like an hour and a half, straight music. They were just going from tune to tune. I wish I had it on tape. It was the best concert I've ever been to in my life. It was just, he was playing. And so after that, I remember telling him, I was like, man, you know what? You're my favorite trumpet player, like, now that I listen to. And I remember he was like, what? He was like, yeah. I was like, yeah, man. I said, for real, like, yeah. I mean, he was really, that's how, he was like, yo, he didn't know how really good he was. That's why he goes to jam sessions and all that. He didn't look at himself as whatever. He just was like, what? I was like, yeah, man. And I told him, I said, man, you really dress nice too. Because I really do love jazz cats who dress nice. You know what I mean? Play that whole part back in the day. And so I was like, yeah, man, you dress nice too. And so anytime if you hung out with Roy and he started to have fun with you or something, he had this little smile and he'd start to laugh. And so when I told him, I said, man, you dress nice too. And he had this little look. And he was like, I can't really do it, but he was like, yeah, come on, because he thought I was about to snap on him. But I really wasn't. I was like, no, man, you really dress. I said, man, you dress nice. This went on for like 5 minutes. It's like, I'm like telling him, nah, dude, I love the way you dress. Like, you know what I'm saying? He was like, he had this little smile, like, come on. And I'm like, no, man. I was like, yo. But he was waiting for me to snap on him because that's what we did all the time. So he was like, he had a little smile. And he was like, come on. I was like, no, man, you dress nice. And he was like, So finally I was like, yeah, but I don't know about this Ripley's Believe It or Not outfit you got on right now. And he started cracking up laughing. And so then we went outside of the hotel. And I mean, we snapped on everybody. Like, that came out the hotel, everybody that was around us, we were just cracking up. And then it was kind of cool. We was making, like, snaps, like, out of jazz tunes. It was kind of creative. Like, but I don't remember what he said, but I just remember this guy was dressed, and he was just like, he looked in the mirror, and he was like, so what? He started singing, do, so what? And it was just funny. And so it was like, it must have been like 6 o'clock. He looked at his watch. He's like, what time is it? Because he always lost time when we was together. We just hang out. And it was like 6. He was like, oh, I got to leave at 6:30. So that's how he was, man. He'll stay up. I remember this one thing that this guy said that they had a concert somewhere and it got rained out or something. And so he grabbed a group and went and played at a bar. And they played at a bar almost all night. And they had to get up, and then I think it was the drummer, Quincy. And he was like, yo, we're going to be tired next morning. And he was like, why'd you come do that? And he said, because the people had to hear this music. That's how he was. He brought this music, like, wanted to bring it to people from where it came from. And so that was one lovely thing about him. So I'll tell you 2 more stories. So one funny thing, when we used to hang out all the time, when he got famous, every time we hung out, he was so cordial. Like, he would talk to people, and people come up to him, hey, Roy, and he would just talk. And I didn't know I asked him, I said, man, how you be talking all? And he was like, well, man, people need us. I said, man, I don't like people like that. But he always talked to people and was very cordial. So I called it what did I call it? I said, get into the Roy vibe, which is like when he hung out with, people that didn't know him, he wouldn't be funny and snap on y'all. He'd just be cordial. I called it the Roy vibe. So when we would hang out, my job was to try to get him out of that Roy vibe. And so anytime somebody come up to us when we was hanging out, and if they didn't say anything to me, I would snap on them. I would turn my back I would turn my back like this, and then like he had perfect pitch, and maybe that's why he heard me, but he could hear everything I was saying. So my job was I would snap on the people and try to make him laugh, and it was just so funny because as soon as people left, we would just crack up, whatever. So I could never make him laugh. He always was, boom. Except one time. If he was here right now, he'd be laughing because it was so funny. So this guy comes up. I don't remember where we was at, but this guy comes up, funny looking guy. Well, I shouldn't say that, but he come up and he was trying to show Roy this valve oil. I guess valve oil is what we use to oil our valves, and so I guess he made his own valve oil. And so he was trying to show Roy the valve oil, or he was trying to get him to endorse it. I don't remember what he was trying to do, but I just remember he ain't say nothing to me. He just went straight to Roy and started talking. So that was our little cue. Roy would know, oh man. So he would look at me with a little smile like, yo. And so the guy continues to talk to him. We're sitting there listening like, yeah, okay. So the guy gives him this little bottle of valve oil. It's like, here. And then so he shows me the valve oil like, yo. And then so the guy goes and hold on just a minute. And he goes and reach into his bag. And so at that time, I turned around and Roy had this look like, oh, Lord, oh. So I turned around and I was like, man, if you don't take this 50-cent bottle of crack juice back home with you. And it was so funny. He started laughing so hard. And the guy turned around and Roy was laughing. And he tried to stop. He was laughing so hard. I started tapping him on the back. Like I was like, yo, he must have ate some bad peanuts or something. Hold on just a minute. And he was just laughing. And then so he got up and it was just so funny. Yeah, that was just, okay, I'm gonna tell you one more story. This is by far the funniest Roy Hargrove story I can tell you. I think it's the last time I hung out with him. Okay, so I went to New York. He lived off of, I think, Bleecker Street or something. So I was there. So, I would never call Roy because Roy don't talk on the phone that much. Like sometimes if you listen to his answer machine, he always had crazy answer machines. And one time he had this little Chinese lady saying something, I don't know, but it was funny. He'd always call me back. Might be 6 months later, but he would call me back. And I remember one time he called me and he was like, not depressed, but he was like, before he started the RH Factor, he was like, yo, I gotta start doing something else to make some money. And I'm like, yo, you ain't making, like, you're not killing? And he was like, the economy was so bad then that he was like, yo, that's when he started the RH Factor. For money, well, not for money, but I'm just saying, he was like, yo, I gotta do something else too. So anyway, so I went over to his crib, and anytime we hung out, like what's funny, and I think about it now, is every time we hung out, I never even talked to him about music or like what he was doing in his career. I mean, we always talked about Arts Magnet and stuff in arts, and back in high school, it was like we was back in high school. And he would always lose track of time because we would just have so much fun. And so this one point in time, I remember I went to his house and so we started, shooting the breeze, whatever. But he started telling me how much he loved Teddy Pendergrass. And if you listen to some of his music, you can kind of hear this. But he loved the way Teddy Pendergrass would like sing. He'd be playing something real pretty. And then all of a sudden he'd be like, turn them off! Like, turn off the lights, turn off the lights. And he would just go on that, turn them off! Turn them off! And then he was laughing. And then so I saw my favorite tune was think you better let it go. Like doing the I think you better let it go. Looks like another love. He would be like, turn them off. Yeah, he would be like, turn them off. And so we did that for a minute. And we were just like jamming, right? And so then, because he'll grab his horn on anything and play on anything. So he went to go grab his horn. And then all of a sudden, he started like, I remember he was like a little rabbit. He was, oh, where's my horn at? He was like, what time is it? And I was like, no, it's 7:15. So he had a gig at the Iridium, which is one of the best jazz clubs in New York. He had a club at the Iridium that night. He just forgot because that's how we do. We just lose time. And so so he's like, let's go. All right, man. So we get into the cab and we start doing the thing again. I think you better let it go. He was like, turn them off. Turn them off. And so, so we get to the club. And so we go into the back of the Iridium. And there's a security guard in the back, right? So we go in and I'm with him. The security guard was like, yo, you can come through, but he can't come through. And I was like, all right, well, cool. But Roy had your back. And it was one thing about him, like, man, like he so much had your back. If you was part of him, yo. So the guy was like, he can't come through. Roy was like, yo, he's playing with me. You know what I'm saying? He was like, yo, no, he's playing with me. And then the guy said, oh, I guess you didn't hear me. Right? That's what he said. Then he was like, who is this, your bodyguard? So it was kind of funny. So it was like, oh, it's snap time. That's what I was thinking. And I looked at Roy. I gave him a look like, because it wasn't my place. But I looked at Roy like, yo, kind of gave him a look like, you gonna let him talk? Well, yo, what's up? And so Roy was like, hey, check it out. If he don't come with me right now, I'm not playing tonight. And then I was like, yeah, we ain't playing tonight. And then it was just, we started laughing, right? And so then it got to be a little snapping joint. So we started talking about the security guard and his fake Target badge. And we just started talking about it, right? And so then he had on some funny boots from Afghanistan or something. So I was like, where you get them dusty, take them back boots from? And then Roy was like, I think you take them back. And then from the, Teddy Pendergrass song, he was like, take them back. And then I started doing the bass line. I think you better take them back. And then so we started snapping on the guy. Like, it was so funny. Like, we traded fours almost. Like, he would say something, and then he'd be like, I think you better take him back. And then what was funny is that the people in the kitchen, they started coming out. And it started to be like it was around people, everybody was around us, and we were just snapping on the guy, like, back to back, like, cracking. And then we'd just be like, and then he started singing a harmony. And it was like, I think you better take him back. He was like, take him back. And it was like, it started sounding like a groove. Then we started snapping on the guy. It was so funny. And this went on for like 5 minutes. And then the security guard was like, hey man, aren't you supposed to be playing? And I kid you not, Roy was like, oh, that's right. And then he grabbed his horn and went to play the set. He was like 30 minutes late. But that was one of the most funniest, I swear. If he was here right now, he would be laughing because that was so funny. Anyway, rest in peace, Roy Hargrove.